Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel. And yesterday, Charity FC struck again with another kind donation as Chelsea went down 1-0 at Goodison Park to Frank Lampard's relegation-threatened Everton. And the wait for a win at Goodison extends into a fifth year now. No win there since 2017, where we won 3-0 under Antonio Conte in our title-winning season. And truth be told, I was at the game yesterday. Big up to all the away support that travelled the long distance to get there. Great support. Shame that the boys let us down with a disgraceful performance. But you could tell from kickoff, we gave away a free kick in a dangerous area like a minute or two into the game. And you could just tell from then, these boys weren't up for it. You know, Everton wanted it more. We didn't want it. Mate, we've checked out. We checked out ages ago. These guys have handed in their room keys at reception. They're gone. They've checked out. They're done. You know, and it's the same thing over and over again. And the most evident thing was yesterday, just a complete lack of ideas. Everything's so slow. We get into a good position, the play slows down, and then suddenly, we turn around and we pass backwards. It's like we're playing rugby and we're only allowed to pass backwards. And when we did create opportunities, Jordan Pickford, who I would love nothing more than for him, Richarlison and Yerry Mina, the three absolute mugs, to be playing in a championship next season, because they were utter pricks yesterday, the three of them, honestly. Pickford, every time he went down, he would stay down for ages. He was on the ball. He'd lie on it for about 30 seconds. The referee doing nothing every time. Richarlison rolling around like he's been shot. Mina going down like a sack of shit for a massive unit. It was embarrassing. But, you know, the referee had no control of the game. But ultimately, we were just never in this game. And it's a worrying pattern that is emerging for Chelsea. And it's a cycle. And this is how it goes for the last few seasons. Start the season really well. Well in a title race at Christmas, normally top. Have a shocking Christmas period. Pick up the form in January. And then fall off at the tail end of the season and find ourselves in a battle for the top four heading into the last few games. And it's rinse and repeat. And it's so annoying and it's so frustrating. And, you know, we're no closer. I'm sorry, but we are miles away from City and Liverpool. City and Liverpool did not lose that game yesterday. They win that game. It's as simple as that. It's not even a debate to be had. George, what are your thoughts? I mean, you know, we've had two games in the space of the last 3 days against the worst Man United side in Premier League history and probably against one of the worst Everton sides that's existed possibly ever, or definitely for the longest time possible. And yet we couldn't win either of those games. And we now find ourselves in a situation where Arsenal could justifiably finish above us. And there's every chance we could slip out the top four. I know that's might seem a bit alarmist and a bit, you know, pushing the panic button, but you know, this form has been awful. And there's a chance that we're getting sucked back into it, which is just criminal.
Yeah, well, I've chose black to wear for this afternoon's pod because we're in mourning, really. I think Chelsea have finished for this season. Bar the FA Cup, of course. Look, yesterday was diabolical. There's no getting away from that. And the last two games are 3 hours of football, or 3 hours of my time that I'll never get back. But the difference in the level of performance from the United game to the Everton game was no short of shambolic, really. I mean, at least against Manchester United, they've got arguably better personnel, and we did play well. We did perform well. We just couldn't finish. It is a difficult one because I'm on the other side of the fence, where I think, and I've said this, and it sounds like a broken record, but it is difficult to motivate yourself in a season that we essentially don't have much to play for now. And we haven't for some time. We've been in that top three bracket pretty much all season. And, you know, we're not better than City and Liverpool. We're not going to go above them. And the teams behind us are, you know, even though some neutrals may disagree, I think Chelsea is still a cut above the rest. So what do you do? Again, people say, oh, Everton are shit. Everton are playing awful.
Everton are dog shit.
They are.
Sorry.
But then who do you don't want to be playing these clubs at this stage of the season because they've got literally everything to play for. So it's easier to play at an Everton side. For me, it was worse we drew at home to Everton than it was yesterday. Not the result, but I'm saying we should be smashing them at Christmas time. These games where they've literally got to win, I think Frank Lampard and Everton had to win yesterday. I know people say they've still got games in hand. They've still got, 5 to play.
No, this was must win. It was must win.
It was must win. Their home form has been good and they needed a boost. I think if they had ended up giving away a last minute goal, which they nearly did, and end up drawing that game, then I think they're done. Going into the game itself, just, like you said, mate, you just watched that first 30 seconds. You summed it up perfectly. Just they were first at every ball. They were up for it. The crowd was that 12th man. Chelsea just out of ideas. And I know you'll get into it, but the goal ultimately led to that out of ideas where a player literally did not know what to do. Too slow, didn't know what to do. And we ended up getting caught out. I think I saw a stat earlier that we've had more goals from individual errors than anyone else this season that have led to
mate. I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that up later, but I'm just going to bring it on the screen now, mate, whilst you've mentioned it. And I couldn't believe this when I saw this on the bus on the way home, that we've made 14 errors leading to goals in the Premier League since the start of last season. Only Everton, 15, have made more. That, for a team that is going for the Premier League title, that is unacceptable. Can you believe how many errors that we're making at the moment and how many points it's costing us? Because yesterday was another gift of a goal given away. And I knew straight away, mate, that as soon as we went a goal down, the game was done. We weren't winning. Despite Everton being, in the relegation zone, we weren't winning. I mean, are you surprised at how many defensive mistakes that we are making or errors that are leading to goals? Because actually, it's a bit of a worry now. You can always forgive, over the course of a season, there's going to be individual errors. It happens. Players are human. This is a regular occurrence. This is almost going back to the Lampard days where we were making defensive errors pretty much almost week in, week out. I mean, for me, another big thing as well is that basically 3 of that defence have checked out. Rudiger's leaving, Christensen's leaving, and Aspie is probably going to leave. 3 of them have checked out. Are they really asked, to be honest, how we finish the season? They've got their moves. They're going elsewhere. I think that's a contributing factor as potentially. But I mean, are you surprised at the errors we're making at the back? It's just not good enough.
Very surprised. If you consider the contrast of being one of the best units at the back. I mean, we were talking about literally being the best defence in Europe. That's how we won the Champions League. To now this. And the hardest part is it's nothing to do with management or coaching. I mean, it's just individual errors costing us vital moments and points in games where I just don't know how you can't plan for it. I mean, Aspie's just taking far too long on the ball, and then there are no options around him, whether there were or not, or he's just decided to take too many touches, not scan, not look to who's behind him, and
just put it out.
And it's just, but again, at least under Frank, I could see that we were trying to play it out the back, and therefore we were going to get unstuck with individual errors. This just literally came out of nowhere, so easy. He's had 5-6 seconds to decide if he wants to play it back, or he wants to play it to Mendy, or play it, to the right hand side or left hand side. He's decided just to, turn his back towards Mendy and then just, take so many touches on the ball. It's incredibly frustrating, and the performance was awful. But I think there needs to be some context of really, really good point made on TalkSport by, I know he's a controversial figure in Simon Jordan, but realistically, have we been disappointing this season if you consider the amount of finals we've made and where we are at the moment in the league? We can't really go any higher than what we are at the moment because of how good City, Liverpool are.
But it's the gap though. We shouldn't really be finishing more than 10 points off the top of the league. We're going to end up probably 20 points off the winners. That's not good enough. The gap should not be that big. That's the point, is that there's no consistency with this side. I think for me, it's an alarming trend, is the mentality. We see this every season. As I said at the top of the show, start well, terrible at Christmas. We go again, and then we fall off the wagon, and we're suddenly trying to scrape top 4 on in the last couple of weeks of the season, when that should never have been a thing in the first place. Last season we had the Champions League to focus on, and yet we still had to have a favour from Spurs of all teams to actually make sure that we finished 4th in the first place. So it's for me, it's the mentality of this group is worrying, and how easily they just down tools. These guys checked out weeks ago. I mean, I'm just going to bring something else up on the screen now as well. This is not just the last couple of games. This has been realistic. This has been going on since we returned from the international break. I know. Let's bring this one up here. In the last 30 days, we've lost 4-1 to Brentford, 3-1 to Real Madrid, 4-2 to Arsenal, and we've drawn 1-1 to United and lost to Everton. So that's what? Five losses and a draw against the worst United team in history in the last 30 days. Players have given up for the season. Simple as that. Embarrassing. I mean, this has been terrible. I know it's a big thing to say that these guys don't seem bothered. I'm sorry, they're not. There's no application. And even yesterday, though, the away end's where this down right in the corner where obviously the away players walk off. Mate, the only reason these guys clapped us was because they had to walk past us to get off. It was as simple as that. We got more recognition as fans from Frank Lampard than we did from our own set of players. It was inexcusable yesterday. And I'm sorry, these players are disgraceful. They are. They really are. Time and time again, downing tools. When it gets tough, they just disappear. I mean, George, what do you think of the mentality of these players? Do you think I'm being a bit harsh, or do you see the trend that I'm on about? Is that this is not just a one-off? Tuchel's been working miracles with what he's got. And the reality is that, yes, he has to take partial blame because he could do things a little bit differently. But as he said in the press conference, when asked about the attack, he's like, well, if I could do something different, do you not think I would do it? This is what he's got. And to a certain extent, he has hamstrung himself in sense of the fact that he got rid of certain players in the summer. Giroud, who's doing really well at AC Milan, we could have done with him. Whatever people think of Tammy Abraham, if we had Tammy Abraham this season, would we be in the same position? Probably. We probably wouldn't be any better off, but it would be another option. We got rid of Giroud, we got rid of Abraham. We didn't really, all right, Lukaku came in, but, Tuchel's, we're thin in the squad in certain areas, and Tuchel has to take some responsibility for that because he was happy to let those players leave, which we potentially could have done with. But I mean, ultimately, George, what do you think of the mentality of the squad and the players? Because this is not a one-off. This is season after season that we're seeing the same pattern.
Yeah, it is a Chelsea pattern. When Frank Lampard got sacked, I think anyone who was going to come in was going to lift the spirits and improve results somewhat, because that's just what happens with any manager, not just Chelsea, but particularly in our history. Anyone that seems to come in, I mean, what springs to mind perfectly that almost mirrors what Tuchel did in Roberto Di Matteo. Comes in, hardly any coaching experience really. I mean, he's not a world-class manager as he comes in, gets the players behind him. We start a pattern of believing we can do the impossible, exactly what Tuchel did when he came in. Okay, the brand of football is completely different, and Tuchel's a far more well-equipped coach, but the same end result happened. And I fear that Chelsea, because we did so well under Tuchel for the last 6-7 months, we've almost peaked at the point where that was the level that Tuchel was supposed to reach in 2-3 years' time, not now. He's literally won the Champions League, the Super Cup, the World Club Championship, a Cup final, a League Cup final. He's done literally everything but win the league. And I don't know. I fear that if Roman Abramovich was still in charge of Chelsea Football Club, I really do feel, I don't know what it was like in the stands, mate, but I really do feel that we don't get a good start next year and questions will start to be asked. And I'm not saying that's anything to do with Thomas Tuchel, but, like we were touching on just before we went on air, he's essentially brought in one player since he's arrived, and that player was supposed to take us to the next level. Okay, no one can envisage what was going to happen, but he hasn't taken us to that level. I also think my second point on this before you come in is we know that sport and football in particular is to do with confidence. And I think the defeat to Real Madrid and the manner that we went out really hit hard on a lot of those players because we deserved to go through that night. And I think if we had won that and gone through, I don't think we would have been seeing these results now. I think it would have catapulted us into this, again, this undefeatable attitude where we never say never. But unfortunately, we nearly did the impossible and went out in heartbreaking circumstances. And I think that has still got a bit of what if to it, considering if you look at the team still in it, with Villarreal and Bayern going out and everything else, we did have a chance there.
Yeah, for me, like, I just don't really get what's going on. The attack's been a problem all season, and it's a very valid point that with this constant hiring and firing that they've had under Roman, is that managers come in, they get a new manager bounce and they win trophies, but it kind of papers over the problems that are at the club, and people just ignore it because we win trophies. They think, everything's good, but the reality of the situation is it's not. The reason we play 3 at the back is because we have to, because we haven't got the quality to go with a 2. We haven't got the personnel in midfield to play with. We need a holding midfield player. We can't really go 4-3-3 necessarily on a consistent basis because we've got no out and out holding player. We haven't got the fullbacks really that are good enough to play in a 4. It's and things like that which obviously aren't helpful. The fact also that when you look at Pep and Klopp, who were chasing down City and Liverpool, they've been there for a number of years, and the squads at Liverpool and City are now not completely, but 90% made up of players bought in by their respective managers. You look at Chelsea, and you've got Tuchel's inherited 3 or 4 managers worth of squad. It's got like a lot of players that were there under Lampard, some players that were there under Sarri, some players that were there under Conte, and then he's picked that up. And in reality, he probably doesn't even want 4 or 5 of those players. He doesn't want them, but he has to use it because he's not had the time or the backing yet to bring in what he wants. So that is a big issue. Having to work with players that you don't trust or you don't want. I think it's very difficult, despite what people say, that when you've got players that have signed for another club playing for your team, is their head really in it? Are they giving it everything? They don't want to pick up an injury and go into their new pre-season at their respective new teams and start on the back foot. I think they've checked out. Mentally, they've checked out those players that are leaving. And, that's a problem as well. But what I do want to talk about is the attack. And it's the same old problem. Now, Tuchel got criticism. No one wants Tuchel to be sacked or anything ridiculous like that. But I think he has to take some of the responsibility himself as well. Everyone was saying, that we need to play a consistent front 3. Let's get a consistent front 3 gelling and whatnot. So we need to stop, making all these changes every game. But then I think recently he's gone to the flip side. We've seen Havertz, Mount, and Werner start the last 5-6 matches, and that isn't working. Kai Havertz, look, he's a great player, but let me make one thing perfectly clear. Tammy Abraham's got more Premier League goals than Kai Havertz does right now. Havertz's career is in peaks and troughs. He's given us moments, but there's a severe lack of consistency. That could come, but after his purple patch in March, he's been awful. He's been really bad. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. He's been terrible. Yesterday, he was absolutely shocking, and how he played a full 90 minutes, I don't understand. I really don't get that at all. And Tuchel, to me, seems to be keeping faith with attackers that are consistently letting him down every single week, bar Mason Mount. Hakim Ziyech, I'm not saying, he's flavour of the month, he's unbelievable. But the fact that he hasn't started a game since that win against Crystal Palace away, where he scored the winner in the last minute. I think that must have been in maybe February. End of February, perhaps early March. Why is he not? What's he done to not want those 3 that have been starting have not been tearing up trees and deserving to start every week? Why hasn't Hakim Ziyech played a game? Christian Pulisic, again, perhaps not his biggest fan, but he's come off the bench and made impacts. Winner against West Ham, etc. Why is he not being given an opportunity? Why is he always finding himself on the bench? And Werner and Havertz are playing every single week. It's not like they're playing every week and they're doing really well. They deserve to keep their place. Why is Tuchel keeping faith with attackers that are consistently underperforming and other guys who are sitting on the bench are not being given an opportunity at all? And I don't understand that from him. Personally, I don't get that. What are your thoughts on that? The faith being kept with the likes of your Havertz and your Werners when they're not delivering, and yet you've got other players in the squad that must be sitting on the bench thinking, what do I have to do to get a game? Why do you think these guys aren't being given a chance?
I don't know, but we've questioned Tuchel before, and we've been constantly, time and time again, proven wrong with his tactics and his team selection. But that trend of results you brought up on the screen kind of shows that it's not working with those three. I mean, I can't stand Lukaku, as you know, as people know that watch the show.
He should have played. I'm sorry, he should have come on yesterday.
Yeah, well, I thought he should have started, and that's from someone
I did as well. Yeah,
against your old club again. We've had 3 or 4 really poor results. This is an opportunity to switch things up and say, look, you're the main man for this game. Give it 90 minutes. Give it your all. You're not coming off unless you get injured. Just play. Didn't do that. And you've got to question, the manager's got to die by the sword if he's not going to bring on a £100 million striker that he's brought in, his own choice, in a game that we're losing 1-0. Questions have to be asked. Particularly, I thought Havertz was pathetic yesterday.
He was awful.
Yeah, and I'm all for like getting riled up, and I like a bit of passion and getting, face to face with defenders, but throwing yourself on the floor and, making excuses. And I mean, like you said, mate, how he played the full game, beyond me. And I guess it's just down to we don't have any other option.
We did have another option. We got 100 million. We've got 100 million pounds on the bench.
Yeah,
like Tuchel's.
Get someone like Vale on if you want. Just
Tuchel's reason after the game was like for Lukaku not coming on was like, I've only got 3 subs and we had to take Jorginho off. Well, that's not
we got 2 more then.
You got 2 more, and you put on Cech and Pulisic, who did nothing. Like, that for me is where like I'm slightly confused by Tuchel as to why he's keeping faith with certain players that are consistently not delivering, but there's other players in the squad that should be given a chance to show what they can do. I just don't know why that's the case. I think Mount's playing a lot more minutes than perhaps Tuchel wants him to play, but he's the only player that has actually been consistent this season and contributed. Everyone else, moments, a few games here and there. That's not good enough. That isn't good enough. But I mean, do you think he's gonna? I mean, what do you think about just the point from RD in the chat? I won't put it on the screen. I'll just read it out. I mean, there's one thing about Tuchel, and I haven't got a lot of criticism for him. I will criticize where I think it's due. What do you think about the fact that for me, mate, he waits way too long in a game to make subs? I know we made a change at halftime yesterday, but we were losing 1-0. We've got 3 attackers on the bench. I know we've only got 2 subs we can bring on. Why are we waiting to almost 70 minutes? Those changes, like Werner, and I mean, obviously he switched the formation slightly because Aspie came off. But for me, mate, Havertz and Werner should have been off at half time. Like, it should have been a triple sub at half time, really. I mean, what do you make? What do you make about Tuchel's subs? Because it's not just a one-off in this game. I've noticed it as well. They tend to be reactive rather than proactive. It's wait till something happens before a change happens, rather than preempting that something could happen. Let's make a change to try and change this. I mean, what are your thoughts on his substitutions and the lateness of them?
It's one of those unsolved mysteries that I've just never understood. It's not just Tuchel as well.
It's managers in general.
Someone that springs to mind, like Gareth Southgate. I just don't understand why you've literally got an hour and a half of football, which is not a long time. And, I don't know whether this is true or not, but players, I feel, need at least 15 minutes to kind of get some sort of football.
You probably really need half an hour. If you're going to have an impact as a sub, influence the game. All right, you could be in the right place at the right time and score like Pulisic did against West Ham. But if you're going to sort of impact the game, generally speaking, you need at least 20 minutes, probably more.
Yeah, which I think is why, we've been fairly critical of Lukaku. He comes on for 5-10 minutes and we're like, oh, he's shit again, whatever. But you can't even really get your touch in at that point.
What are you supposed to do?
Well, I guess at elite level, you're expected, even if you're on for a minute, to make some sort of an impact. And that's what they train for day in, day out, that they're ready for those moments. It's not like amateur football where you might need 10 minutes to warm up and get your legs moving. I mean, they should be fit and ready to go. But I do think he leaves it far too late. And I just, it's so frustrating because it was so evident that something needed to change. We weren't, the first 45 minutes was so passive. It was so sideways and slow.
We had one opportunity, that Mason Mount shot that just dropped onto the roof of the net. Like literally, mate. But like obviously they were attacking down the other end to where we were sitting in the away end. Mate, the ball was hardly up that end of the pitch at all.
Yeah. But when you said at the top of the show, we got into some good positions. I didn't see us getting any good positions. I saw the Pickford double save. Other than that, I didn't see us.
Rudiger had an opportunity that got saved, but yeah, other than that, mate, nothing.
Perhaps right at the end in a decent area, but really, we didn't even get in their box. I mean, even the set plays the
delivery was awful.
Yeah, and the stat came up on the TV. Obviously, you wouldn't have been able to see it. That Everton are in the top 3 for the most conceded goals and set plays, and yet. Again, delivery, awful, playing short corners. What the fuck are we doing? Like, surely they know this. The analysis know this. So you think, right, a side that concedes a lot of set plays, make sure your delivery is good. Make sure you put it into the box. And why not play Lukaku in a game like that? That requires.
He should have. He should have played. I'm not saying I'm not saying we would have won, but Havertz was not working. And I was having with a random guy on Twitter, saying Lukaku should have played yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, he's crap." I was like, "Mate, what? So the better alternative was to leave on Havertz, who was doing absolutely nothing." I don't think so. I'm just going to bring this up quickly because I did see this on Twitter as well from Matisse. This squad has finished on 70 points, 72, 66, 67 points the past 4 seasons. We're on 66 points now. They've reached their ceiling. I tend to agree with this. And Texas Blue goes on to add, this is who they are in the league, just not good enough for the league. And that is true. This group of players is not good enough for the league. The fact that when you look at what the league's been won on the last 2 seasons, 100 points and the high 90s, we're finishing over 20 points. 20 points plus off winning the league for the last 4 seasons. This could be 5 seasons now. That gap is massive. Do you think, George, despite how good we think these players might be, they're not performing? And in reality, this is where we are. At the moment, we're kind of just a top 4 side.
Well, one of the things you can't say is that over 38 games, it does show your true colours. You can't, maybe in the cup, people can say, oh, you weren't the best team or whatever, or in the league, the best team wins the league always. That's just a fact. And again, it brings me back to my original point, though. I do feel, the Premier League, of course, swings around in roundabouts. We were only talking a couple of years ago, Liverpool not having a Premier League title in 30 years. So Chelsea have been very dominant in 15, 20 years of football, and it can't last forever. And yes, we haven't put a league run together for some time, but City and Liverpool weren't even title contenders for a long, long time. So I think people have very short memories in football, thinking that, these two are the best things since sliced bread. Yes, they are now, but let's look back a little bit. When Mourinho first came to the club and we started winning things left, right, and centre, where were Manchester City and Liverpool then? Nowhere.
But do you worry?
Again, I am worried, but what else realistically can we do? We've got to admit that we're not on their level. I know it's our job to close the gap, but if we were sitting here and we were 10 points off, we're having the same conversation.
But it's not as, I don't think it's as damning, the conversation, if we're 10 points off, because that's like, at least, we're closing the gap and we're not a million miles away. I've got to be honest, mate. Honestly think we're miles off. Over a 38 game season, we're miles off. Like, you can point at circumstances. Okay, we've been unlucky with injuries, but in the last 4 seasons, we haven't had dreadful injuries every season, have we? No. That, for me, this is the reality of where we are. That we are not good enough to challenge Liverpool and City. In one-off games, yes, we can beat those teams, as we've demonstrated. But over the course of a 38-game season, we just don't have that consistency. And the last 2 games have perfectly summed that up. You know full well that Man City and Liverpool go to Old Trafford and they win that game. City and Liverpool go to Goodison and they win that game. We don't. We just don't do it. And I don't know what the answer is. You can look back at things and, as we made, the makeup of the squad is a mismatch of multiple different managers, and Tuchel probably wouldn't have wanted half the players that are here, but he's got them and he's working miracles with what he's got. And, I'm not saying the whole squad is not good enough. that's a big overreaction. But when you dig down into it and you're honest with ourselves as fans, the majority of this squad's not good enough. 3 of our back 4 2 of them are definitely confirmed as leaving. So Rudiger and Christensen gone. Aspie more than likely gone. Thiago Silva's going to be 38 next season. We've got Marcus Alonso, who is not really good enough, and he's said that his priority is to go back to Spain in the summer. So that's another one that could potentially be down. We've got Reece James, world class. No other depth there. Malang Sarr, not good enough. We've got Chalobah coming through. Okay, it's good, still inconsistent, unproven. Jorginho and Kante both out of contract at the end of next season. We've got Loftus-Cheek in there. Kovacic is our best midfield player. We need some sort of something to be rectified there. And then you look at the forward areas and you think talented players. I wouldn't care if Ziyech, Werner, Lukaku, and Pulisic all left in the summer. I honestly wouldn't be bothered because none of them have done what they were brought in to do. And you can say injuries, not being given consistent playing time. I understand that. But ultimately, if we keep that same group of attackers, are we actually going to get any closer to winning the league by having those same players? And I'm sorry, but the answer is no for me. The squad needs, as Tuchel said, it needs cosmetic surgery. It does. Yeah. It's like, and it is a bit worrying, new owners coming in and, we need to sign 2 centre-backs. We need to sign at least 1 wing-back. We need a holding midfield player. And if we can, we need players in the attacking end of the pitch that are pacey, direct, take players on, and can actually put the ball in the net. And this here sums it up perfectly. Frustration is that we are now a top 4 battle and on form and points are on par with Arsenal and not even close to City and Liverpool. Newcastle are better than us in this calendar year. Newcastle are better than us. That's poor. And the fact that, the amount of banter we've given Arsenal and how shit Arsenal are, yet there's a distinct possibility that this Arsenal team finishes above us. How embarrassing is that?
Yeah, very. The irony of it is, in order to make that gap and to close that gap, we're going to have to go down either the Pep route or the Klopp route. The Pep route, we either get a new owner in and go down the Pep route where we literally spend, £500 million in each department, defence, midfield, attack, and just go for it. Or we do Klopp where we say, right, we bring back Gilmore, we bring back Gallagher, we buy some offish players who are good value for money in the market and try and keep them for 3-4 years and build them up to be the next best thing. Chelsea historically are not going to do that because we need instant success. So it all does depend on the owners. And I do fear that it's easy to say now because we've lost Roman Abramovich, but maybe we've had that 15, 20 years of great football and we're going to go back to being a club that's a bit of a cup team and a bit of a, the next best thing, but not the best thing.
I think arguably we've been a cup team for the last 4 or 5 seasons, to be honest. We've been nowhere near in the league. And, as I was saying, I was a little bit off topic from the game and we'll get back onto it in a sec, but it's not an exaggeration to say that this is probably the most important summer in the last 20 years. Could be one of the most important summers in the club's history. We've got a manager that, if we back him, will stay for a long, long time and can build something special. But we've got a new owner coming in. We don't know how much money he's going to spend. And there is major, major surgery required on the squad. The whole backline virtually needs rebuilding, bar 1 or 2. The midfield needs addressing and the attack needs addressing. Now, this can't all be done in one window. But, this summer, if Todd Boehly, who's very much going to be the new owner, it looks like, obviously Jim Ratcliffe's still trying to push, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. The new owners need to come in and make a statement and back the manager, because this summer and the recruitment and the money spent and the backing for Tuchel is ultimately going to decide 2 things: how long he stays at the club and how quickly we're going to get back to challenging for the league title. Because if we don't get those things right, we're going to drop further off and we're going to find ourselves looking for another manager because Tuchel will leave. I mean, do you think this summer is up there with the most important?
It might not be, a singular window that's so important, but I agree that if we go down this spiral of not getting it right, we do turn into an Arsene Wenger or Man United type scenario where it's window after window of poor recruitment, manager goes, and then we go into turmoil. I think it's spot on with Thomas Tuchel. He could be the next Jurgen Klopp in terms of being at Chelsea for 6-7 seasons, really building something that we've never really trialed before, ever. Even before Ranieri, really.
We've not had longevity at the club at all.
Never. So I would love to see that. And I'd love to see some of the players like Gallagher and stuff be given an opportunity. But again, we don't know. We don't know if the owner's going to come in and be like the Glazers, where they just don't invest in the squad, maybe buy one big marquee signing and say, right, I've given you this player, shut up now. And then, but it's not the answer we need. And we bring someone like Pogba into the club, and it's for shirt sales, and it's turmoil. Yeah, I'm a bit more positive on the squad. I do think there's capability in this squad. I get your point that a lot of those players are leaving and of age, particularly at the back. But I don't know. I think we are where we are because that's where we should be. As simple as that. We're not as good as Liverpool and City, but we're the next best. And closing the gap, yes, but it doesn't matter if you're 10 points or 40 points. We're still third, and third is third, or first is first, second's nowhere, isn't it? Really, ultimately in Premier League football. I know, I get your point, but there's a lot of other clubs in the Premier League that would like to be Chelsea still right now.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I think it's just down to because we're so used to having success that we always want more, and that's fair because of the money we spend. We should be doing better, but
there are glaring deficiencies that are staring us right in the face.
The future's crucial. Put it that way.
It's absolutely vital. And for me, if we could get rid of 7 or 8 players in the summer, then we should do it. We obviously won't, because you can't just have a fire sale and get rid of a load of players, because it just doesn't really work like that. But for me, the squad needs major surgery. But that's for the summer. That's for another conversation. Maybe later in the week, might do a stream looking forward to the future of the club and what we could be potentially expecting next season. But back to the game itself, George. Obviously, we've discussed it. First half, nothing. Individual errors again letting us down. Aspie, I think Aspie's washed now. I think he's done. No, he's getting on a bit. I think he's probably checked out onto the Barcelona beach, and he's just making mistakes, mate. I love him, but I think it's time for him to move on. I really do. But even after that, George, we could have been. We were lucky not to be 2 or 3 goals down. Everton with a couple of good opportunities. Again, young Anthony Gordon looking quite influential. But when we did have a couple of chances, you just know it's not going to be a day where Jordan Pickford, who was obviously having a distinctly average season, suddenly pulls up a worldy double save. The one where it hits both posts, and then the follow-up effort, he somehow keeps up. And you just knew then it wasn't going to be a day. And ultimately the game just petered out. We offered nothing, poor delivery. And it was another dreadful performance. There's not really much else to say about it other than it's the same stuff that we've just been repeating over and over again. We could just play back streams from the last couple of games, which is the same conversation, the same problems, but they don't look like they're getting any better, and they don't look like they're going to be resolved anytime soon. It's going to be a slow burner. But one interesting thing that I was listening to or discussing is, I'm not saying, Tuchel has to improve these attacking players, but this idea, I've seen people saying that Tuchel can't really coach attack. I think that's nonsense. Neymar, I know you don't like Neymar particularly, but Neymar had his most productive season in terms of goals and assists under Tuchel. Tuchel got the most out of Neymar, and you can't say that about many other PSG managers getting a lot out of Neymar. Tuchel got the most out of Neymar, had his best season under him. I think the idea that Tuchel can't coach attack is a bit of a myth. But what I would say is that I don't think him coming in has had the desired. He hasn't improved the forwards as much as I thought he might do. I'm not expecting him to work miracles, but we're sort of 18 months into Thomas Tuchel now, and can you really say that any of those forward players, bar Mason Mount, are actually any better than when he first came in? I actually don't think they are.
No, and you're right. I think when he came in, the priority was obviously to stop leaking goals at the back, and he did that almost instantly. I know it was was it a goalless draw against Wolves' his opening game?
Yeah, first game of the season. But his first game.
And instantly you could see that we were right, and obviously that went on to then be the benchmark of what the records that we set up until we started to lead the goals again. But I do agree, mate. I think it's another art to, and they always say the hardest part in football is to stick the ball in the back of the net. And that's almost been, I don't know, because of the players that we've got, maybe not as focused on, because he really did, probably like everyone else, believe that it would just come good naturally after certainly bringing Lukaku. You thought, right, this is going to be the launch pad for those players to improve. I'd say probably other than Havertz, who has made a slight improvement. But then even then, I thought he'd scored way more goals than that. And then they brought it up in 4 league goals this season. And Defoe was saying in the studio, like, oh look, if I was a striker and I was playing this amount of games, playing 4 goals, I'd be mortified. So even though he's been better, it's not good reading.
No, it's not.
But what do? We've got literally, those players still.
It comes down to, for me, last thing on this, it comes down to recruitment. Yeah. Chelsea's scattergun recruitment over the years, we're just getting players in for big prices, kind of on reputation.
Sorry, mate, but do you disagree with any of those players? If you'd gone back, and would you not have signed any of those players? Because I don't see where the mistakes were, really.
I'm not sure. I'm not saying the mistake in signing the players, but what I mean is in signing them for the wrong reasons, just signing them because they're a name or because they've had a good season somewhere. Without actually thinking, are we just signing players because we want them, or are we signing them because they fit the system, they fit the philosophy the manager wants to play? Right. Let's be perfectly clear. We signed Timo Werner, a counter-attacking striker. Look at all his goals at Leipzig. Counter-attacking striker, likes loads of space. We find ourselves up against pretty much a low block every single week with no space.
Agreed.
We're not thinking. We're not thinking. I don't know who it is, the scouting department or whoever it is. We aren't thinking about whether these players actually fit into the system and are going to be perfect for the system we want. And that's the big thing. You look at Man City and Liverpool. I hate to go back to it because it's really annoying. But when was the last time that City or Liverpool recruited someone that was shit, that just didn't work out? All their signings pretty much work out. Particularly in attacking areas. Grealish is too early to say. A lot of players in the first season at Pep struggled. Mahrez was poor in his first season. Sterling was average in the first season. But generally speaking, City that have signed players, particularly in attacking areas, that fit into the system and they work out. Liverpool the same. Jota comes in, fits in seamlessly, like he's been there for years. Luis Diaz coming in January, looks like he's been there for years. This is proper recruitment and proper scouting. For us, it's just a scattergun. We seem to be like, oh, he scored X goals in this league, let's bring him in, without giving any consideration to any tactics or any thought as to how the manager wants to play. Is he right for the system? Is he the right profile of player? We just bring it in because we think it's a marquee name and it's a lot of money and that will solve the issue. It doesn't. And it's a good point, here, if we look, people say, oh, if we had Salah or Mbappe or whatever, put them into our attack, they just won't score goals because we don't play in a way that suits them. And for me, that's the biggest problem. And we need to go to recruiting in a smarter way. Buying perhaps less fancied names. And I know the fans would be pissed off if we'd been like, oh, we signed Diego Jota from Wolves. Imagine if we'd done that. We'd signed Jota from Wolves. People would be like, well, why have we done that? What's the point in that? I think we need to re-evaluate our expectations, be smarter in the window, sign more unfancied players as such. For example, we need, mate, is more signings like Mendy. £23 million. No one's really heard of him. He's turning into a top player. We need more of those. We need maybe more Premier League proven signings as well. But until our recruitment changes and we actually do the due diligence of actually properly scouting players, making sure they fit into the system, that they're right fit for what we want to do, then we're going to keep having this issue. And for me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, well, mate, I don't really have much to add to that because I think it's a really, really good point that you make, that it's easy kind of to do this FIFA approach where you handpick your favourite players and you say, right, I'll have Messi, I'll have Ronaldo, I'll put them into Chelsea. They're going to score X amount of goals. It just doesn't happen like that. Maybe it does for the odd occasion, but yeah, again, I hate saying City and Liverpool so much in one show on a fucking Chelsea podcast, but yeah, they buy the right players. They're not necessarily. I don't even think Yeah, Mahrez won the league with Leicester, but he's not exactly a high profile at the time. There were still other wingers out there that perhaps you could have said, the Hazards, the Neymars, they could have gone for, and they haven't. And the proof's in the pudding with those guys. But Chelsea have always been like that. Chelsea have always, particularly with forwards. I mean, we've always bought in this superstar rather than thinking about
spent big money on everyone in the forward department.
And actually, the most underrated ones, Drogba at the time when he won the UEFA Cup, okay, still wasn't. Some people said he's past it because he was quite old at that point. Only just coming to the forefront in top level football. And Diego Costa, who wasn't particularly the best striker out there, were the best too.
Mate, and the most damning thing on this to round out is that since we last won the league, we spent almost £300 million trying to find a regular goal scorer, and we're no closer. To be honest, mate, the money we've spent and Willian, Pedro, Hazard, Costa was better than what we've got now. And that for me is the biggest problem that sums it up, is that what we had a few years ago is so much better than what we've got now. But yeah, a couple of things before we get into the ratings very quickly. Do you think we'll still get top four this season? I'm now 50-50. I'm also a little bit more, I wouldn't quite say I'm 50-50, but I'm more 60-40. You look at the form we're in and the games you've got left in the league. Wolves at home, very difficult. I don't want to be negative. That might be a tough one to win. Leeds away. Leeds, fighting to stay in the division. Ellen Road, a tough place to go. That could be difficult as well. I think we then got Leicester and Watford at home. We should beat Watford at home. Leicester at home, tough to say. But it's very possible that this could go to the last day of the season, the top four, with the form we're in. I wouldn't say I'm 50-50. I'd probably say I'm 60-40 that we do it, but it's getting a bit close for comfort. What about you, George?
I'm still confident that we finished still third where we are. Maybe that's a bit naive to say because I was very confident last year, and actually it wasn't down to us while we finished in the top four. But look, it's got to turn, and it's got to turn quick because at the moment, like you said, Arsenal are on a bit of a run at the moment, and if you look at the results pattern, we're not. But I'm still confident that we've got enough to see it through with the teams that we're playing that are left. We should certainly be beating Wolves at home next weekend.
Yeah, although they're on the back of 4 losses in a row, so you know what's going to happen. Look at it; it's going to be another donation from our lifetime contract with UNICEF. It's got a nice donation for Wolves. Here's the 3 points. Off you go. It's honestly ridiculous. This is a good point from Bradders in the chat. Pep's first full season at City was awful. That is true. I think they only just finished 4th, but but he got backed and got his players. Never looked back. Tuchel needs backing. That is 100% the thing. You could perhaps draw parallels there, but the most important thing is that Tuchel gets the players he wants and he gets backed. It's as simple as that, because otherwise he's not going to stick about and we're not going to close the gap. Right. Let's get into these player ratings. Guys, before we get into the player ratings, please do smash a like on this video and please make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're tuned in now and you're not subscribed, please do click that button. It really helps you out and we appreciate all the support. Right, getting into these ratings then. I'll quickly bring this up. Let's rattle through these. George, Edouard Mendy. I've got to be honest, it wasn't like he wasn't awful. He couldn't really do very much about the goal. Made a couple of decent saves, but other than that, mate, there wasn't an awful lot to do. I mean, I don't think he was average. I mean, I'm probably looking at maybe between a 5.5 and a 6. How did you see it from him?
Yeah, it's always difficult to rate the goalkeepers in these situations because he didn't have a lot to do. We can't really rate him on his shot stopping, and he can't really do anything about the goal. It's not his fault. It's a 1-on-1 and nothing that he could do about it. So, yeah, I think he's got to have an average rating just for the way that the whole team, the way it panned out. But it is hard to rate the goalkeepers because he's not had anything to do, really.
What do you reckon? 5 or 6 or
5.5? 5, 6, yeah, 5.5. We'll go in the middle.
Let's go 5.5. Obviously, guys in the chat, if you agree or disagree, let us know. Let's move on to this back three then. Unchanged back three. Moving on to the captain himself, Aspie. Obviously, the big error for the goal. I've got to be honest with you, I didn't think Aspie was very good yesterday. I thought he was poor. I really do. I didn't think he was great at all. Obviously, cost us the goal, ultimately. He got forward okay a couple of times in that first half, but, not really offering much, and ultimately, as I say, cost us the game. I think he was below average. I really do. What are your thoughts on Aspie?
Yeah, I agree. I thought the emotions got better of him yesterday. I think he
was getting involved in those scraps as well.
And as a captain, sometimes you like to see that, but then you want to lead by example the way you're playing, and he didn't. He kind of let that emotion get too far ahead of him, where he was then not focusing on his football. And the mistake, we were heavily critical of Christensen the other day for doing the half volley pass back, and we've slated him for it. So we've got to do the same for Azpilicueta. So I think it's below a 5, whatever we're going with, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was below average for sure.
I think it's below average. I think it's, mate, honestly, mate, I don't want to be bad, but I think it's as bad as a 3, mate, honestly. Because, because without the mistake, Aspie won. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that would be too unfair either. I just think for the error, for the goal, is just unforgivable. You shouldn't be doing that. It's cost us the game, not with his experience either. Moving on to Thiago Silva then. Again, not one of his better games. It was tough, but he made good tackles, good blocks, throwing himself at the ball. Probably the best of the defenders. I'd say just above average, probably a 5.5. I think the 5.5 for Silva is probably fair. I mean, what did you make of him yesterday? He did get amongst it. He made some good blocks, some good tackles, but yeah, I think he found it quite tough yesterday. I'd go 5.5, but I mean, I can obviously change that. What were your thoughts on Thiago yesterday?
Yeah, you obviously expect more from him because of the way he's impacted the squad since he's come in. But again, you're only as good as the people around you, and when they're not performing, you get singled out quite easily. So it's difficult for him to raise his game when people are making mistakes left, right, and quite literally to the left and right of him. So yeah, it's difficult.
Moving on to Rudiger, mate. I think he's checked out. Yeah, I mean, he had an opportunity yesterday, like at the back post where it was saved by Pickford. He had a shot from distance as well, pretty standard for him. I thought defensively he was kind of just average. I didn't think there was a lot from him. To be perfectly honest, I can't really remember him doing much defensively. If I'm being perfectly honest, giving away a few fouls again. He was one getting involved in a few scraps as well. I'd probably say it was worse than Silva. I'll probably just say an average 5 for Rudiger. Anything to add?
I just think he's enjoying his football now that he's signed for another club in a really sinister way. Like he's almost like it's almost like comical. He's like laughing and he enjoys it, but he's like not trying his. And some of these European players, I'm not being biased, but I think his best performance of late was against Real Madrid in that Champions League match. Ever since we've gone out, he's like, I couldn't give a fuck about the Premier League because we've got nothing to fight for. And I guarantee if that was a Champions League game against Everton, he would have been outstanding. But for some reason, some of the Premier League games, they just can't be asked because they probably haven't even heard of these clubs. And they're just like, I can't be asked for this. That may be just an outrageous claim, but I do think yesterday he was enjoying it in a really weird way when we're losing.
Fair.
It's like, why are you laughing?
Do you think the 5 is fair?
Yeah.
I don't think he was worse than average, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the fullbacks. Reece James, he wasn't awful for me. Obviously, first half he was literally playing right in front of me. He gets forward, but the balls wasn't really coming to him. His delivery was a bit off.
Yeah,
not as good as it normally is from a few of the set plays that he took. He just struggled to get up the pitch, really. Again, it wasn't awful. I mean, do I want to say, is it worse than average? It's hard to say, but he was nullified quite well and really struggled to influence the game. Defensively, he wasn't too bad, but yeah, struggled in the forward end of the pitch to have any influence on the game at all. As I said, the delivery was a bit off and just not really one of his better games at all. What are your thoughts on Reece?
Yeah, and it was definitely a tactical ploy from Frank to kind of nullify his performance because they know that all of our good work comes down from him, and they doubled up on him quite a lot on that side, so he couldn't go bomb forward. And it worked because he didn't really have many options when he received the ball, got caught out a lot of times, and for his standards, below average. If he had delivered the balls that he did against Manchester United, I think we would have had a bit more success, but just couldn't find those pockets because they did so well at pressing him. So I can't give him any higher rating than what we've got on the board for the back four at the moment. I really can't.
What do you reckon? A 5.5? I reckon maybe 5.5. I think he's probably just better than average. Yeah. But again, that's not saying much really. we're being perfectly honest. Moving to the other side, then Alonso, after doing pretty well at Old Trafford, he reverted back to his Jekyll and Hyde character. He was shit yesterday. He really was. I don't like, not dog shit, as in like he wasn't worse than Aspie in my opinion, but you know, he wasn't a lot better. He just there wasn't really anything there. Wasn't really carrying an attacking threat. Got caught out a few times by Anthony Gordon. Just really a nothing performance from Alonso, and you know what we've come to expect. And obviously, he said obviously when I was on the way up to the game yesterday, scrolling through Twitter, you know, seeing that that Alonso is going to remain respectful for Chelsea, but his priority is to return to Spain in the summer. He's an option for Barcelona. I mean, Barcelona could end up having Christensen, Aspie, and Alonso, and we'll probably get them in a Champions League next year if they qualify. So, you know, but Alonso yesterday, Jekyll and Hyde, this was a poor performance. What are your thoughts?
I just think it's probably a dream for any of the other sides when you look at the sheet and you think, you know, he's never going to get past me with his pace. Never. He's good. He's a good footballer, obviously, but you look at the sides that we're trying to catch in the league and how you know, electrifying they are in their fullback positions, and he's just not one of those players. And he epitomizes how slow we play because he's one of the slowest players going. Just unfortunately, he can have those unreal performances, but bang average yesterday, and they didn't really have to worry about him at all, did they? Let's be honest.
What do you reckon? 4?
Yeah, 4. I think he was pretty shit, mate. To be honest.
He was dog
Sorry,
shit.
Marcus.
Yeah, apologies, Marcus, but you were shit yesterday. Moving on to the midfield then. For me, mate, at the start of Ruben Loftus-Cheek on his 50th start for Chelsea, I've got to be honest, mate, I thought he was superb yesterday. He was our best player on the pitch by miles. The way he picks up the ball in midfield and just drives forward and runs. My only issue was one of his runs in the first half, he should have just had a shot. I don't know why he laid it off. He should have taken a shot on. But I was seeing, you know, a Ruben that towards this latter end of the season has really stepped up. And actually, if you can continue this for the last few games of the season, I think we should actually keep him. I do. I think he's showing that what getting your head down and working hard can do, because he has been one of our better performers in recent months. I thought yesterday he was exceptional. I really do. I mean, I'll probably give him a 7.5. You know, just everything he did was good. But he does take too long on the ball before releasing it. You know, I think for me, he should have had a shot from one of his runs, and just sometimes hold on to the ball for too long. But yesterday, I thought he was a standout performer. I'd give him a 7.5. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, and we've been crying out for it, haven't we? For him to take games by the scruff of the neck and you know, show his dominance. And Tuchel has faith in him. It's just a shame that he sometimes, you can see it in the way he plays, doesn't have faith in himself to, like you say, take that shot or that killer pass that we're asking for in the middle of the park, where just take a little bit of risk. And he did that yesterday, but unfortunately, because everyone else was tossed around him, it didn't help. But he did get in those pockets. He did make those driving runs, and he was the only spark in what was a pathetic performance from the rest of them. So fair play to Ruben, because we've been critical, saying he's got to do more, but he did it yesterday.
And he's doing more. So fair play to him. Moving on to Jorginho, then obviously subbed at half time. I don't know if that was an injury or not. Obviously, the only reason Ruben started was because Kante had a minor knock, which is another slight concern in itself. Jorginho only played a half. Oh, I'm sorry, mate. This was dreadful. It really was. I felt a bit harsh actually criticising him against Man United, because actually look at his stats and he was actually one of our better players. So I feel a little bit bad about that. But, you know, yesterday, awful. Subbed at half time, rightfully so. Just so slow on the ball every time. Slows it down, plays it backwards. No intensity in his game yesterday. It was just rubbish.
Yeah. And, you know, as fans, you know, people say, oh, you know, we shout at the stands, say run a bit harder, and I can do that. Honestly, you watch Jorginho, you could have done what he did yesterday. Anyone could have put on a pair of boots and been doing square passes left and right with no one trying to tackle him. It was so easy.
This is why it's so annoying when people say, oh, yeah, but look, you know, he's got certain players in their last few games. I'm not saying Jorginho, but like people go on about certain players. Oh, look, they've had 100% pass accuracy in their last few games. Yeah, I could have 100% pass accuracy if I'm just passing it sideways or passing it back to the closest player to me every single time. It's ridiculous. But yeah, yesterday, Jorginho, probably not the sort of player we needed for this game, really, was he?
No, but then tactically, if you're going to play someone like Ruben, you have to play that sort of player who's just going to sit and recycle the ball and not venture forward. Like you have to, because otherwise it's going to be chaos if you're playing someone like I don't know, that's for for example, a Gallagher in there or a Bart. It's just not going to work. So I get the reason why. And he wasn't, I don't think he was first choice anyway, like you said, because Kante picked up a knock. So
yeah, and Kovacic obviously wasn't fit either to start.
Yeah, so exactly. If Kovacic was fit, he'd play, but I thought he was great. Well, not he didn't do anything wrong, but he doesn't do anything right either. Just like,
what do you reckon, a 4?
Yeah, 4. I'd give him 4. So
4. And whilst we're at it, Kovacic obviously played a half. He was better. He did give us a bit more energy, a few more driving runs. I mean, I'd say probably just above average. I'd probably give Kovacic maybe I think a 6 too high, 5.5.
Too high, I think he looked a bit average, but it looked as if there was a reason why he wasn't playing from the start.
I think he'd been rushed back potentially.
He was pretty much playing at like a 70%, 60% tank.
Yeah, let's give him a 5.5. Right, let's quickly rattle through these front three, mate. Mason Mount had a good opportunity in the first half, drops onto the top of the net, had a nice run where he did a decent bit of skill. Other than that, there wasn't an awful lot, to be honest, from Mount yesterday. Works hard as always. I kind of just think average, mate. I really do. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, not a great performance from Mount. Again, they brought up the stats, and he's pretty much he is first in every department. So we can't be too critical
this season.
Yeah, we can't be too critical. And I love his work rate, and that's why he starts for me, because of he gives that amount that you expect from the rest of them. But again, you are playing a team that are struggling for survival. Their defense is frail. You should be creating at least 5 or 6 decent opportunities. And
100%.
I don't know. Maybe it was just one of those games where Everton were just really up for it, and we couldn't find a way through. But yeah, it was, again, I thought it was, for his standards, below average.
5 or 4.5?
5. Even the extra half rate, perhaps. But
let's give him the 5. Right, these two players certainly won't get a 5. Werner,
your favourites.
I don't know why. I don't know why he keeps like. I was fully backing the starts against Southampton, the starts against Arsenal, etc. But what I'm not. I don't understand why he started the last 2 games. I don't understand why he started against Man United. I don't understand why he started this game. He was crap yesterday. Literally, I couldn't tell you a single thing that he did in the game. Like,
you were close enough.
Mate, I was there, and I'm sorry. I couldn't tell you a single thing that he did in the game. I mean, on the TV, mate, could you see anything different? Could you tell me something he did?
No, I can't. I think the only reason that he could have potentially been starting is the reasons that you brought at the top of the show, which is Everton need desperately points, committing players forward. I didn't expect them to sit as deep as they were, but they did, and you would have thought Werner would get more space, but no, he did nothing, mate. Absolutely nothing.
What do you think? 2?
3, 2, yeah.
2, I think 2.
I thought he was the worst. For someone who's supposed to be creating up there, he was the worst. At least Havertz was, going toe to toe with the centre back and trying something.
Yeah, Werner was awful. Havertz, mate, I have to say, I think Havertz was the worst out of the lot.
Do you?
Yeah, but the only thing Havertz did was shove Mina over in the box, and that was it. That was his game. He did nothing, mate. Literally, from the first 2 minutes, he was bullied by Mina for the whole game, and how he stayed on the pitch for 90 minutes was beyond me. It really was. I mean, he's a young player, and he's done well for us. Certainly for the month of March, he did well. Havertz was awful yesterday, and we have to accept that he's a young player. There's going to be inconsistencies, but he shouldn't be immune to criticism, because if Lukaku had started yesterday and done what Havertz had done at the top end of the pitch, he would be getting absolutely battered for that. And the standards shouldn't be different. Havertz was shit. It's as simple as that, mate. I can literally, mate, all I can do is give him a 1 because he turned up. He turned up at the ground. That's it. Nothing. Literally nothing. Your thoughts on his performance?
In one word, toss. But
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you've got a bet. You were there, so you've got a better idea than me. Yeah, didn't offer anything. I think it's fair. I'll go with that.
Mate, Mina was in his head the whole game. Just like Havertz was done. He was rattled, mate. He was rattled.
He
And it
was
was crap. It was crap. There's no point spending too long on it, but he was shit. He needs a rest. Like Lukaku, for me, should start. Obviously, we'll get into this later in the week when we preview the Wolves game, but Havertz needs a rest. He's virtually started every game for the last couple of months or so. The only game Lukaku started was Arsenal. Havertz needs a break. He just does. He's being run into the ground at the moment for me, and I think it's affecting his performances because it was a couple of sitters he missed against United, and then he was obviously anonymous in this game here. But yeah, I mean, that rounds out the player ratings. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Appreciate all of your support as always. It's always good to have a bit of a vent about Chelsea. Please do smash a like on this stream and please do click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're looking to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the season. It's quite an ambitious target, but we can definitely get there. And with your help, we'd really appreciate it. So please do click that subscribe button. Guys, one final thing before we round out. The match vlog from yesterday will be up probably about 6 p.m. in about 35 minutes. I'll upload that from yesterday so you can see my match day experience from Goodison. So please do check that out and let me know your thoughts. George, pleasure as always. Thanks for coming on as always, mate. Guys, we'll catch you in a few days, probably with another stream about the summer, looking ahead, what Chelsea might look like the next season. And then we'll catch you towards the end of the week with the Wolves preview. So until then, up the Chelsea and take care, guys.